to go.
Hey everybody, welcome to Roll for Effort. Tonight we're doing System Curious again, and we're going to have part 2 of EarthDawn. We're going to deep dive it a little bit more, and this is Joe's baby. So Joe, why don't you lead us off?
I think that's an ED. I'm throwing up gang signs for an RPG. That's crazy. EarthDawn.
Right? EarthDawn!
Probably wasn't even correct things. I hope I just didn't offend the entire gang community. But they're probably not watching us.
Yes, please don't shoot us.
If you're not here next month, we'll know what happened.
Right?
Right? I live in Canada, just in case anyone was wondering.
Right? We love everybody, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm from Canada. Can't you tell by my outrageous accent? Right.
You went from like British, slipped into Scottish, and straight on till morning. All right, Joe. So we want to talk about focusing more on the mechanical side here of like what are the modular bits that we can take out of EarthDawn and use in any game system. Like what can EarthDawn teach us in order to become better DMs?
Indeed. Well, first I do kind of want to just give a brief talk about their kind of core system. You should play it because it is awesome. EarthDawn rules. I love EarthDawn. Just saying that for get that out there in the air. I'm sure it's already known. But the core system on EarthDawn uses a kind of step progression system. Just to kind of give a quick gloss over. The same way that like Dungeons and Dragons, which is also awesome. Thank you, Dungeons and Dragons. In the sense that they have that arbitrary number, like you could have a strength 18. Woohoo! That gives you, depending on what edition you're playing, anywhere from a +3 to like a +4, I think, in the current.
Right.
But based on that same kind of step or that same idea that you have this kind of more arbitrary number that means something else mechanically in the game. For instance, in EarthDawn, an 18 is going to. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong chart. An 18 is going to give you a specific step, and I am on the wrong page. It's going to place you into a certain bracket, which I'm losing my pages here. Sorry, here we go. An 18 is going to put you in a step 7, which, in the same sense that mechanically that's going to give you like a plus whatever to your D20 roll in a Dungeons and Dragons game. In this game, however, that step 7 means that every challenge you roll that involves your strength is going to start at a D12 because of that step 7, which is D12. You might have a skill that, say your melee weapons has a rank 3. You're going to add that 3 to your step that's already a 7 for your strength, which will bump you up to a step 10, which would mean you're now rolling a 2d8. So this is against like that same target number setup that or control or critical roll, whatever.
Yeah, so it changes the kind of dice that you can roll to try and pass your check.
Exactly. So your target number might be a 12. On a D12, that's pretty sucky. It's going to be hard for you to get up there. But on a 2d8, it's going to be a lot easier. Something might grant you another bonus of a +2, and wow, oh my gosh, all of a sudden you're rolling at a step 12, which is a 2d10. So your chances are improved. And then there are levels of successes depending on how high you roll over that.
Right. So Joe, what are the dice? So you said there's steps. So step 1 through sounds like 10 or more. What are the dice that you're rolling on each of those steps?
Yeah, so the dice do change, and actually the steps go on and on up into over 100, which if you're rolling those dice, you are probably a horror or an elder dragon, and you're just going to wreck shit. But generally, as a player, you're usually going to start at a minimum of step 4, because anything lower than that, it just starts to get really bad. It becomes minuses to your dice. So step 4 is generally a D6, is always a D6. Step 5 is a D8. Step 6 is a D10, step 7 is a D12, steps 8 a 2D6, step 9 D8 plus D6, and they kind of continue following this this kind of progression, getting bigger and bigger and bigger, so that you have a better chance to score a better kind of hit or a better success.
Yeah, that's certainly a unique system for determining checks.
So, like, for instance, up to a step 20, you're rolling 2d12 plus d10 just for your regular dice roll, and these are all roll and add against a target number. So that kind of covers that. You're going to have different defenses or target numbers depending on the target or the action that you're taking. So that's the thing. Like it's not really a mechanic you can port into another game. You should just play EarthDawn if you're looking for that kind of an experience where you're going to have this more rampant growth during your first level. We call them circles in EarthDawn. Your circle 1, circle 2. You're going to see growth throughout your talents or your skills while you are in that same circle before you can upgrade.
Right. So you're saying this gives you a better... It sounds like the system is designed to give you a much stronger sense of progression.
Yes, indeed.
From level to level.
Indeed. Instead of waiting until you hit a level to actually get some progression, you progress all the way throughout that current circle or that level until you get to the next one, which opens up even more progression and new talents and more things in this high magic kind of apocalypse that EarthDawn is.
Yeah.
The world of bar save.
I kind of like that. I mean, because in a lot of games, you run into a problem towards higher levels where the number of abilities that you obtain kind of make things a little bit unwieldy. Like, like in D&D, you don't really see a lot of content above level 10 because it's really hard to write for. I'm not saying it's not possible, it's just for the average dungeon master, it's kind of hard to handle. So you just sort of, campaigns tend to end around 10 or less, in level.
Right. And these could definitely go on. I ran an EarthDawn campaign, which everybody was well into, circles 14 and 15 and such. And it's best not to think of the circles in the same way of levels because they're treated a little differently. It's more in how big your legendary status has become, how well known you are, which in turn goes back to what I touched on last month when we talked about EarthDawn. Pardon me, is that the lore and the mechanics kind of go hand in hand. Which brings me to a point, if you're looking to take beautiful nuggets into another game, if there's something that you want to use, I have to talk about the magic items because they're the most beautifully well-handled magic items that I've ever come across in any game. And one of the many reasons that I love EarthDawn. So the magic items. Say you have a magic sword. Yay, it's a cool magic sword. I've got a +1, which could be a +1 in D&D, +1 step for your damage here in EarthDawn. But the tricky things that come in with that, for instance, looking at the spell sword, page 140 of the 3rd edition Game Master's Guide, for anybody following along at home.
Okay.
The spell sword, it's a magic sword. It gives you information on the different styles that they could come in, whether it's a normal broadsword or a longsword or whichever. Okay. But then come the thread ranks, and this is the thing that you can do with any magic item. These tasty nuggets, you can do it with any magic item. But again, in EarthDawn, the lore and the mechanics go hand in hand throughout the game, so it works beautifully there, but it can be used anywhere else.
Well, so can you walk us through how that would work? Like, let's say I get this item.
Yeah,
and then what?
You've got your spell sword. Think of it like bonding the magic item to yourself, but there are some steps that need to be taken to actually do this. Like, for instance, bonding that first thread rank or that first little touch of the magic of this spell sword comes in the form of the key knowledge. You must learn the name of the sword because it is a named thing. Again, in EarthDawn, the presence of having a name or being a name giver is a very important thing in the lore. But in any game, a named sword is a good sword. So that first thing is you have to learn the name. Now, mind you, this is a magic sword. It's already ancient. It has its own story. So you learn the name, and that allows you to open up the magic of this blade, the first little nugget of magic. In this instance, for this item, the sword has a spell matrix of a rank equal to your thread rank, which in other games could relate to this sword can cast a spell through it, even if you're not a magic user.
Okay.
So it sounds to me like that's a perfect example of how you can tie the world your players are venturing in to things that they're getting in those adventures, tying them into suit. When you talked about that sword, the first thing that came to mind was Glamdring from Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
And they got a sword. They got this unnamed sword from a troll cave. It wasn't until Elrond looked at it and go, "Well, that's Glamdring. That's an elven made sword from 2,000 years ago."
Right. Of course,
Yeah,
the foe hammer. Everyone knows that.
Right? That's a perfect example of like learning the name of a sword. That unlocks some of like the extra majesty in that. So yeah, again on this for that walkthrough, the next point, there's no extra knowledge or anything learned. The next upgrade you could say into the magic increases the sword's damage. And that's like kind of the second step in there. And into the third step, you have to learn the name of the sword's creator before you can unlock the magic or the effect of that kind of next level of the magic, which gives it a second spell matrix, or it could be it unlocks a second spell, so to speak. In EarthDawn, the spell matrices are, think of it like a spell slot that doesn't get expended when you use it. You lock a spell into it, kind of thing. That fourth step increases the damage again without any knowledges. Now here's where some of the cool things get in, tying right into that lore. Deeds. So like this one, it's kind of that fifth step in unlocking the full magic. The wielder has to decide upon a deed to perform using the blade and then publicly declare his intention of doing the deed. So this one is a little more open than what a lot of them are, where a lot of them are like, you must go to the place that it was forged and do this kind of thing. This one allows you to declare, I will use this blade and I will vanquish the horror of Caer-Jial to free this town. Going a little EarthDawn terminology there, making shit up. I don't exactly remember if there's a horror or a Caer named Jial, but it doesn't matter. Fine. It's like the deed, yeah.
This is a key thing, and I think what this is going to do, so, one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot lately is, you got the three pillars of role-playing, combat, exploration, and role-playing. These magic items are going to pull into easily just drive some of your exploration and some of your role playing, because you got to go, well, how do I go find the name of this sword? How do I find the creator? What are some deeds I can do with it? So right there, just the three things you just talked about are, from a player's perspective, is going to give them things to do, things to think about in the game. From a game master's perspective, it's going to be, they're going to be able to go, well, I'm going to have some sort of quest for them to go find it. I'm going to have to write some notes down about what this sword is so that they can go figure that out. So it gives them reasons to pull them in. So it just, that whole, the focus gets away from a pure combat game, which so many role-playing games are.
Yeah,
let's do something cool with the stuff that we get.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's beautiful.
The lore and the mechanics really pull in this game.
Well, but it's not just that, Joe. It's not the lore so much as you're taking and giving the player a magic item, and they know that in order to make it more powerful, they can do certain things, and you're putting the game in the player's hands. You're making it about the player, right?
Yes.
Like and like you said, it's not just so. Step one, is to find the sword's name. Step two is the creator's name, but step three is about like the player. What is the player going to choose to do to prove themselves worthy of the sword?
Exactly.
That is freaking gold. Like that is a great nugget to be able to put in your game, to help your game be built around your players.
Like these aren't things that you would all be able to do just at one level or at one circle. Like you would have to progress into higher circles to be able to unlock some of these things. Because at least in EarthDawn, the rank of the thread equates to your circle of, like a circle 1 can't go and create or tie a rank 6 thread. Like you have to progress. So these are things like, this is a sword or a weapon that you would carry for quite a while, like pulling all of these things out. And it might not be the only like magic item or thread item that you have.
Right.
And again, like each step that you unlock gives you a little something more until you've unlocked the full magic of this blade.
Well, next time I'll use another Lord of the Rings example, just because it's one that a lot of people are familiar with. Think about the ring, the One Ring.
Yes.
So when Bilbo first finds the ring, it's a gold ring, and he happens upon that, it turns them invisible. It's not till years later when Gandalf comes and talks to him and says, "What is this that you've got?" Kind of, there's more here than just an invisibility ring. Then, of course, obviously, it becomes the most powerful ring in the world, and the whole story is dictated on that. But that, you're talking about over 4 books, and in the game or in the world time, 100 years or so.
Yes.
Between those 2 times of that lore, so I could easily see where it takes you some time to learn how to go get these more information about this, or even have the ability to wield it, for instance.
Right.
Indeed.
Spacing it out.
Right, spacing it out, and like you pointed out, it does really kind of put some focus and some power in the hands of the players, not just mechanically in a game, but from that role-playing aspect and that that world-building aspect. Like, especially with that item, with the fact that they can declare what deed, that really kind of opens up the floor to, boom, spotlight on that player. What is the deed you're going to do? Because now that's a physical thing in this world. Right. It could be something that's already there, but it's a big noteworthy deed that's going to probably have some impact later on that you could use for fuel for future games.
Yeah, and if you've got multiple items, they could be threading together with your other players too, right?
Exactly.
So.
And I mean, EarthDawn itself is full of just so much work that they put into tying lore and tying the mechanics together, especially with the way their magic items work. But that's definitely like, another small thing that you could take and just port into any game. You could use this beautiful work that they've done on the way these items are handled, or this magic items specifically.
Yeah.
And I do believe, if I remember correctly, or maybe it was just something we did at my table, any player doing sufficient enough deeds with a weapon, if they've stuck with it, you could start making that a threat item, because the things they're doing are big enough and the deeds are great enough that lore is starting to tie to the weapon that they're carrying, which in the lore of EarthDawn is how most of these weapons were forged. Like there's bows named after somebody, like there's a Nisha's bow and something like that, and this woman Nisha, I'm trying to remember, I think it was an elf. Anyway, like some great deeds were done with this bow a long time ago that actually forged these things in there.
Yeah.
So a lot of these things you can kind of think about, the name that they need to learn of the sword is the name that this person used way back when, what name they gave it, who created it, where the player back in the day forged this sword, or who they got to forge this sword for them, and what deeds they had done. And you have to tie into those kind of deeds. So there's a lot of ways that the story and the lore pull back in to make these items feel more special.
That's cool, Joe.
So to speak.
That's really cool. Chuck, I could tell you had an idea there.
It's gone.
It's gone? All right, sorry.
Oh, man, I was rambling.
No, I steamrolled over Chuck on accident, and I realized after I'd done it that there was something there.
I remember what it is. So this is going to appeal to a lot of different player types. So, for instance, in my groups, I've got power gamers. So the power gamers are going to want to know, give me the more skills, give me the more damage, give me the more spells, give me that. So that's the same magic items are going to appeal to them, but it's also going to appeal to your storytellers and your role players, because they're going to want to build into the rules. So it's really, because there's no group that's one type typically. There's typically a range of player styles in a group, and this is going to appeal to all of them. I think it's an amazing mechanic, and I think, like you said, it could be pulled from EarthDawn, that concept of doing that, into any other rule set that you're going to run at the table.
Yeah, that is a great point.
Yeah, that is a brilliant observation. I wasn't even thinking about that, but you're right. It would appeal to a very wide range of people, and because not everybody is going to be interested in the lore, right? You're, like you said, the storytellers are going to be a lot more interested in that, but you're people who are interested in tactical combat and how hard they hit. They want the deed. Like, how do I get it to be more powerful? Oh, that's what I got to do? Great, I'll go do that. Here's my Skyrim marker, and they'll go over there and,
Right. The game EarthDawn itself does have a broad focus to kind of cover all those different player types, like you just pointed out. Whether it's looking for the lore, EarthDawn is packed with lore. If you're looking for more of the combat, there are so many options through talents that you can modify how you go about combat. Even with lore, there are so many options in this that you can modify how lore affects the game and how it affects you and how you affect it. Predominantly, it is a game of exploration. There's going to be combat because it's a whole new world for all the people in Barsave. So, play EarthDawn.
Yes.
I hope you've enjoyed this this brief talk, kind of looking at some of the nuggets that can be pulled out and put into any game. Thanks for letting me ramble, guys.
Yeah, awesome, Joe. And we're about out of time here, but it sounds like EarthDawn is well worth a coin to pick up and check out. That whole magic item system is just like I want to go to like RPG drive-thru right now and pick it up just so I can go take a deeper look at it. We did get some comments on the post that we did about it last week. There is in fact a massive group, an EarthDawn guild out on Facebook, and I'm going to include their address in the doobly-doo below. When we post the video, and check out, say hello. It sounds like a great place to go and meet cool gamers and get some games in.
Yeah, wonderful place to talk about all things EarthDawn. There's a lot of great people there from what I've seen so far. A lot of great people with, different takes on story. Some people doing a lot of like homebrew stuff or additions into the beautiful world of Barsave that FASA has built in EarthDawn.
And it sounded also like
to build.
Yeah, exactly. And you were saying before too that they have some of their developers, the game developers, are involved in that community as well. So if you have, it sounds like a perfect place to go if you have questions about it or want to learn more about it.
Yeah, great bunch of people and a beautiful game. It's been one of my top games since 1993.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I think this one is a wrap. We're going to be back next week, and thank you. And comment below with any questions you have. Thank you for watching.
Bye, 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 bye.